I'm sure many of you can relate to being disappointed or unhappy because you discovered the truth about something or somebody that you liked or respected. And that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about what happens when you find yourself disillusioned. We're experiencing disillusionment in your relationship. And I can tell you, I'm a human being. I tell my clients all the time, I'm not an AI therapist. I have a pulse. I live and breathe and cry and feel and all of those things. And I've definitely lived long enough where I have experienced some serious disappointment and at times a ridiculous amount of unhappiness when I discovered that the person that I was dealing with, the person that I was in a relationship with, was not who I thought that they were. A lot of times, people send their representatives for a variety of reasons, and if you don't immediately or within a reasonable amount of time pick up on the fact that you're dealing with their representative, when the rubber hits the road, you'll find yourself disillusioned in your relationship. And as someone who's experienced that, I'm comfortable in saying far too many times, it can come with a lot of hurt feelings and frustration and aggravation, and dependent upon how it gets dealt with, it can also lead to some hostility and some bitterness and some resentment and downright unforgiveness that opens the door, as you can imagine, to a lot of other issues that can be problematic to the relationship. So I want to talk with you tonight. As always, I want you to chat with me and talk to me through the chat. Feel free to ask me questions, and let's get into this dialogue. So there are a number of signs that can be an indication to you that this word, this experience of being disillusioned or experiencing disillusionment in your relationship is something that you're dealing with. Because as you can imagine, and anytime you've gone through things in your relationship, you might not necessarily be able to put your finger on the pulse of what it is you're thinking and feeling and experiencing, but you know that there's something off. You know that there's something getting on your nerves. You know that there's something frustrating you. You know that there are things that are just not sitting right with you, and you find yourself tight. You find yourself agitated and aggravated, but you're not fully able to fully articulate what it is that's going on with you within your relationship. So I'm just going to share with you some signs. I'm going to walk you through some reasons that may be fueling this type of experience within your relationship. And then, as always, I'm going to give you some solutions that can be instrumental in helping to address this place and space that you find yourself in your relationship. So what are some signs? What are some signs that you are experiencing this disillusionment, this disappointment, this unhappiness in your relationship and everything that's going on with it? If you are in a place and space where you are beginning to question every aspect of the relationship, and you find yourself doing that because the trust has been broken, and you're taking a step back and you're looking and you're like, wait a minute, this relationship has broken down to a degree. It's not as solid as it once was. It's not as fulfilling as it once was. It's not giving me the same degree of satisfaction that it once was. Questioning the aspects of your relationship is a key indication that you're experiencing disillusionment in your relationship. The other one, and I think that this is such a powerful one, and I think not only is it powerful, but I also believe that it's subtle, and that it happens to people and they don't even realize it until somebody like me points it out. And that is when something good happens to you, your partner isn't the one that you immediately want to share the good news with. Your first thought is that you're going to call your mom, or you're going to call your best friend, or you're going to, talk to a coworker, or you're going to talk to anybody else but your partner when something good happens to you. That is an indication to you that you are disillusioned with the relationship, and you're in this place and space where you're starting to emotionally tap out. You're starting to emotionally divorce yourself from the relationship, even though you're still physically there. Another thing to think about is that, is the spark gone? Are you finding yourself in a situation where the chemistry, the sparkle in your eye, the warm feeling that you used to get when you would see your partner or hear your partner's voice, or receive a text message or a note from them, or they walk through the door from work, or whatever the case may be. If that spark is gone, that's a key indication to you that you're disillusioned in your relationship. If you find yourself being in a headspace of doom and gloom where the relationship is concerned, and in other words, the idea of maintaining a future with this person is not looking as bright and as satisfying and as fulfilling and as optimistic as it once did, you're experiencing disillusionment in the relationship. Hey, husband, if you find yourself making compromises that are outside of the realm of the normal amount of compromises that you would make, meaning you're bending over backwards. You are bending over backwards trying to bring fulfillment and satisfaction to the relationship, but you're the only one that's going the extra mile. You've probably heard me say that there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile. So if you're the only one that is making all of these compromises and sacrifices for the sake of the relationship, that's something to think about, because that's definitely not the place and space that you want to be in if your intention is to have a healthy, loving, fulfilling, and sustainable relationship. If you're looking at your partner and your question is, who are you? That is an indication to you that you have become disillusioned in the relationship, because what that means is that chances are likely that you've been in a relationship with your partner's representative, and now you're looking at them because you feel like they did a bait and switch on you. You feel like they're a completely different person than they were when you started dealing with them. And that's a big one to pay attention to, and I'm going to sort of tease that out for you in a little bit, but you've got to be able to differentiate. Like, did they show you who they really were in the beginning? You've heard me say time and time again, when people show you who they are, believe them. Did they show you who they really were in the beginning, and you disregarded that? You ignored the red flags that conveyed to you that this person is coming into the relationship looking and feeling and acting in a way that doesn't sit well with you, but you ignored it anyway. But now you've convinced yourself that they did a bait and switch on you. They didn't do a bait and switch on you. They showed you who they were. You made a decision to ignore who they really were. So you can't put that on them. You have to take ownership and responsibility of the fact that they showed you who they really were. You disregarded that. And I'll tell you, having been there, done that, wrote a book about it, literally, that's a hard pill to swallow, because that means you now have to look in the mirror. You have to take responsibility and accountability for your personal deficiencies that led you to enter a relationship with someone that checked off too many boxes on your red flags list, but you went ahead because of your fear of abandonment, because of your fear of rejection, because your fear of failure, because your fear of being alone, you made the decision to go ahead and enter the relationship with them in the first place. So you've got to be able to look within and do that personal inventory that I speak of so frequently, and get clarity on, well, how did I end up here in the first place? The other thing that, and this one is massive, this one is absolutely massive. If you get to a place and space in your relationship where you feel like your personal change or growth begins to feel more like a barrier or a roadblock in the relationship, if I put it in layman's terms, you outgrowing your partner feels like it's creating a barrier to your ability to connect with them, Houston, we have a problem, because each of you should be evolving. Each of you should be growing and healing and maturing and doing the things to be a stronger, healthier, better version of yourself. And if your willingness to do that, if your commitment to being a stronger, healthier, better version of you within life and within your relationship is creating problems in your relationship, that's a key indication to you that you are outgrowing your partner, and definitely that is going to lead to some unhappiness and some disappointment, because what you don't want to be is stagnant and lacking the ability to grow because you have a partner that's content living and dwelling and being mediocre. Something else to consider is you feel like when you look around you that everybody else's relationships are growing and evolving and they're experiencing more and different and better, but you feel like your relationship is just the same old, same old. It's just stagnant. It's not growing. It's not doing anything. You all aren't going anywhere. You're not saving money. You're not taking trips. You're not doing all of these things. All of these things can be major contributing factors to you becoming disillusioned in the relationship. And again, I'll tell you, I've gone through it. I experience it now at times. And I don't say that to slam my husband, but the reality of it is that I'm a human therapist, I'm a human life coach, and I keep telling y'all week after week after week that I go through some of the same things that you all go through in your relationships. I just don't handle the discord the same way that other people may. I'm not worried about arguing and fussing and fighting and having these knockdown dragouts and what have you. But certainly there has to be a willingness for adults to have mature, responsible adult conversations. And I'm capable of having those conversations with my partner and recognizing for a variety of reasons that we may be growing at different paces. And you don't ever want to feel like you're in a three-legged race of life where you're dragging your partner along. So you need to be able to have substantive conversations regarding what your expectations are for growth, what your expectations are for the things that you would desire for you all to get accomplished as a couple. And then you have to create that safe space for your partner to be able to communicate with you regarding whether or not they have the capability to honor the requests that are being imposed upon them. I hear this next one a lot in therapy. I cannot tell you how many clients I've worked with over the years that have communicated to me that they feel like they're losing themselves in their relationship. They came into the relationship making the person and the relationship the center of their universe, and they look up 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 or more years later, and they're looking around for themselves, and they can't find themselves because they've become so enmeshed in this relationship. The relationship has become so dependent. The relationship has become so codependent that they can't find themselves anymore, and they have completely lost their unique identity. And what I say to folks is you have to be careful with that. You know, you find yourself in these relationships and you enter the relationship as a unique individual, but so oftentimes people allow themselves to be so absorbed with everything that's going on in the relationship that they lose their sense of individuality. Well, the person that you entered the relationship with didn't enter a relationship with themselves. They entered a relationship with you. So there's a degree of sustainability that you must have for yourself as an individual so that you don't find yourself bitter and resentful and stank down the road because you've given to the relationship and everything associated with it to the point of depletion. And that depletion is your sense of self. Something else that can be really, really, really impactful when it comes to you feeling disillusioned in your relationship is you too comfortable. You you're so comfortable that you're taking your partner for granted. The relationship has become monotonous. It's become so routine. It's almost boring. And because of that, now all of these ill feelings are coming up about the relationship. And again, you find yourself in this place and space of stagnation, and you're like, how did we get here? Why did the relationship get stale? Well, because it takes work to keep your relationship fresh. It takes work to keep your relationship crisp. And if you get so caught up in the mundane of the day to day to day, you're going to work, you're coming home, you're taking care of the kids, you're taking the kids to their activities, you're taking care of the pets, you're taking care of mom and dad, you're paying the bills, you're doing all of these things, but you don't take time for each other. Stagnation, right? Someone said to me the other day that they didn't realize until the couple had just did a weekend staycation celebrating their birthdays, and they didn't realize how long it had been since they had actually unplugged from their kids, unplugged from their pets, unplugged from their jobs, and unplugged from every aspect of their lives, and made each other a priority. That is so necessary when it comes to combating the likelihood that you're going to become disillusioned in your relationship. Because if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself feeling stuck. You're going to find yourself feeling stuck in a relationship that looks and feels like emotional and relationship quicksand. And if you've ever been stuck, whether it's in the snow, in the sand, in a parking lot, trying to get unstuck is mentally and physically exhausting. And what happens when you're exhausted? You get cranky, you get irritable, you get short, you get snappy, you get sarcastic, and you get fill in the blank. All of these other things can have these huge adverse impacts. And before you know it, you're looking at your relationship through a problem-focused lens rather than a solution-focused lens. And all of the objects in the mirror are larger than what they really are, right? They're deceptive because you can't see the forest for the trees. You're so honed in on everything that's wrong in the relationship that you can't even see what's right. If you find yourself where you have gotten to the place and space, and I said this last week, if you can take or leave the relationship and you're no longer willing to put forth effort to make the relationship work, that's a key indication that you've become disillusioned in your relationship. And then the last warning sign that you're experiencing disillusionment is you feel like there's this communication breakdown. I'm talking, but they're not listening. They're talking, but I'm not listening. Dr. Pitts, all we do is argue, fuss, and fight. We don't hear each other, blah, 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 blah. That's a key indication that you've become disillusioned. When you spend more time pointing the finger at everything that your partner is saying or not saying and doing, that is an indication that you're disillusioned with the relationship. So why did you get to this place and space anyway? There's a whole bunch of reasons. There's a whole bunch of reasons why people find themselves in this place and space. And there's a whole bunch of reasons behind the reasons that people find themselves, in this place and space. A lack of intimacy. And here's the thing. Don't just zero into physical intimacy. I've shared with you before, there's different types of intimacy. You have emotional intimacy, you have intellectual intimacy, you have physical intimacy, you have sexual intimacy, you have spiritual intimacy. There's different types of intimacy that should be present in a healthy way in your relationship. And if you get to a point where your intimacy tank is on low, it can lead to disillusionment in the relationship. And as I said, there's a bunch of different reasons why the reasons that I'm going to give you may be occurring. So you have to go deeper to find out what is it that's transpired in the relationship that's caused the different levels of intimacy in your relationship to tank. You all are argumentative and you're combative. So, you know what? You can't have a healthy conversation. Somebody's being defensive. Somebody's always catching feelings about something. And because you can't communicate and all you do is argue the majority of the time, what ends up happening is you become disillusioned. You don't feel loved. You don't feel loved. You don't feel respected, valued, or appreciated. If you feel like your partner is rejecting you, if you feel like you are taking backseat to everything and everybody, if you are feeling more like an option rather than a priority in your relationship, that is going to lead to disillusionment. That poor communication piece is huge, because when you can't communicate effectively, communication is a foundational pillar in your ability to have a healthy, fulfilling, sustainable relationship. So if the communication is poor, undoubtedly it is going to break down the connection between you all, which can cause disillusionment. I'm going to give you the PG version of this next one. So you come together, y'all got the, I call it the woo-woo-woo. You got the woo-woo-woo. We're going to call it what it is, lust. You're lusting after each other. She's so fine. He's so fine. She's so sexy. He's so sexy. The butt, the legs, the blue, all the things, right? You got all the things. They're checking off all the lust boxes, checking off all the boxes, Dr. Piston make me go woo, woo, woo. And then it fades. Now it fades. Y'all farting on each other. You're burping and picking your teeth. You got the morning breath. You didn't take a shower for 2 days. You're cranky because your cycle is on. The kid's getting on your nerves, and you're brushing your teeth and seeing all the slob and the whole. And it's like, ew. Those initial feelings of lust fade. It's old school, right? What you did to get them is not what you're doing to keep them. So those feelings fade, and over time, it can make the physical intimacy significantly less intense, and that can become problematic. Another one is deception and self-deception, right? And I like to put the two of those together because, and I say all the time to my couples, stop pointing the finger. Even if your partner is engaging in behavior that is unacceptable, excuse me, none of us are perfect. All of us are flawed. It takes two people to have a healthy, fulfilling, and sustainable relationship. So no matter how big or small, you always have to look at what role you are contributing to the discord, to the disillusionment in your relationship. If you are deceiving your partner, or if you are deceiving yourself, or if you're deceiving yourself and your partner, that deception is going to bite you in the behind, and eventually everything that's done in darkness is going to come to light, and it is going to cause disappointment and unhappiness in your relationship. Are you too familiar with each other? Are you so familiar with each other that you don't take the initiative to continue to get to know each other for who you're evolving into today? I have a running joke with my husband. I'm not going to say exactly what it is that I say to him, but I tell him all the time that there's a particular thing that I want him to work on, and I tell him I need him to go back to school. I need to do whatever it is you need to do. I need you to get that thing fixed, right? And I think that a big part of why that's an area for growth for him is because he's never been with somebody like me. He's never been with somebody like me. So he hasn't had that expectation imposed upon him, but that expectation is one of my non-negotiables. It's one of those things that as we have our healthy conversations about it, I've been able to communicate to him why him improving in that particular area is so important to me, because I don't want that to become an area of disillusionment for me in the relationship. I know me. I know that that particular thing is high up on my needs list. But what I love about him is that even though he says that it's hard to have some of the hard conversations that I present for us to discuss at times, he knows that I'm not coming from a mean or malicious place. I'm coming in love, and I'm saying, hey, and I'm being dead serious. Like I say, I'm trying to give you all the answers to the test because I don't want to divorce you. So I'm giving you the answers to the test. Don't slap the answers on the floor. Read the answers so that you can pass the test. And of course, it's not literally a test, that's just figuratively speaking. But if I'm telling you how to interact with me, if I'm telling you how to engage with me, and you blatantly disregard that, that's on you, not me, because I gave you the answers to the test. The other thing that can be really problematic is hormone issues and stress, right? So when you think about hormones and stress and emotional problems, and there's different types of medications that can adversely affect you, and mental health conditions and life challenge, all of these types of things can affect your libido. They can affect your sex drive. They can affect how you feel about yourself. They can affect how you view your partner, how you view the relationship. So be careful to not just scapegoat one particular thing as to why you're disillusioned. You have to give yourself permission to do a little bit of exploration instead of taking the easy way out and be like, oh, I feel this way because you're not doing this. Give yourself permission to take that deep dive into self and get a much clearer understanding about what's behind, or what's at the root of what you're feeling and why you're feeling what you're feeling. So when you're disillusioned, a lot of times what happens, and as you can imagine, as a therapist, I see it all the time. Folk want to jump out of the frying pan and don't realize that they're jumping into the fire. They want to, they think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, and they jump over the fence just to find out that it's concrete spray painted green, and you don't bust your head on the concrete because you didn't take the time to get the additional information that you needed to make a well-informed decision about what's going on in your relationship. So what ends up happening is people become disillusioned. They start looking for a way out, and what ends up happening? It leads to more problems. Why? Because you're taking you with you. Each of us is the common denominator in every relationship that we find ourselves in. And if you find yourself kicking into flight mode because things get a little tough and you don't want to put the work in, if you find yourself kicking into survival mode because I don't have to deal with all this stuff, and you don't put the work in, as sure as my name is Dr. Lauren Denise Pitts Bounds, you're going to find yourself in the same situation in a few months because you took you with you. And you have to be willing to address your personal deficiencies that are contributing to the disillusionment in your relationship in the first place. The other part of it is that for some of you, you might be in a situation where you were, and I said this a little bit earlier, you were wooed by your partner's representative, and now the real person is showing up and you're less impressed with who you realize you now have. You got to own that. That's your junk. That's your junk. Yes, it's their junk that they didn't authentically show you who they were, but it's your junk that you didn't do some more exploration. Folk are so quick, and I mean, I get it. I guess, some people would consider me an old head now. I don't think I'm old, but whatever. It's like folk are so quick to have sex because the chemistry is on point that they don't take the time to get to know the person that they're dealing with. And now you done open a can of worms, and you done slept with this person 2-3 times. The sex was the bomb, but you don't like them. Now what? One repeated broken and conflictual relationship after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. But at the end of the day, you're the common denominator in the relationship. So what do you do? How do you fix it? Number one, you're going to check your attitude. Yep, I said it. You got to check you. You have to check your attitude and decide if you're both willing to make the necessary changes to get the relationship back on track. Number two, you have to identify what actually needs to be changed in both of your behavior. Stop worrying about what your partner, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do the other. Don't you know when you're pointing the finger at somebody else, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you? What do you need to do? How can you adjust how you react? How can you adjust the behavior that you've been demonstrating that's creating fuel for the fire too? Take the focus off of them, put the focus on yourself, and do what you need to do, and let that grown folk person that you're in a relationship with take responsibility and accountability for modifying their own behavior. Number 3, specifically commit to what changes you will make as an individual. My clinical recommendation is, if it's applicable, pick 3 things. What are 3 things that you can do that can help you to improve yourself so that you're making a stronger, healthier, better contribution to your relationship to combat this disillusionment? And number 4, rather than just scapegoating or blaming your partner for everything that's wrong in the relationship, identify how each of you and your relationship history may be impacting how you're showing up in the relationship. I cannot tell you how many times people have said to me, X, Y, and Z is going on in the relationship. And I say, has that happened in any of your previous relationships? Has any previous partner told you that you're disrespectful? Has any of your previous partner told you that you can't be trusted down the street and around the corner? Has anybody in your previous relationships told you that you're cold and emotionally unavailable? Has anybody in your recent relationships told you that you're financially irresponsible? Has anybody in your previous relationships told you that you need to work on your attitude? Has anybody in your previous relationship told you that your mouth is going to get your teeth knocked down your throat? You got to own your junk, people. You have to own your junk. You cannot have a healthy relationship if you're not willing to do the individual work to be a healthy contributor to that relationship. And then the last recommendation that I have for you is you can register for my virtual couples boot camp. You can do that at drpittsrelationshipfix.com. It's being held Monday, September 23rd, and Tuesday, September 24th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I will be offering a couples boot camp every month until God tells me don't offer them no more. So you want to get a crash course in some things that you can do to have a stronger, healthier, more substantive and sustainable relationship, come to the couples boot camp. You can register at drpittsrelationshipfix.com. That's all I have for you tonight. You don't have to be disillusioned another day. See you.